Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Forestry podcast. I'm your host, Seth Stephenson, the communications coordinator with the Arkansas Forestry Association. And this month, we are back to discuss evaluating your land before you invest into it. I'm going to be joined here by a couple guests, but before we introduce them, let me give a special shout out and thank you to DDK Forestry and Real Estate, our sponsors for this month. We appreciate them, and we're going to hear a little bit more from them later on in the episode. And right now, we're actually going to hear a little bit more from some of them as we hop into our guests, because we are joined today by Mark Knight, a CEO and partner of DDK, and Ray Galloway, a owner and partner of DDK. So, gentlemen, thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you, Seth. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Seth.
So, Mark, you've been on the show. I think you were in episode 14. We talked about recreational land. Was the last time that you joined me. But Ray, you're a new guest, and we always like to offer our new guests the opportunity to share their professional experience, give your credentials, if you will, so we know that, before we hop into this conversation. So if you don't mind just kind of sharing with us your professional history.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Forest Management from the University of Arkansas at Monticello. Went to work right out of school with DDK and started as a forester in 2009. I actually also started doing real estate with DDK and then was fortunate enough to become a partner in 2018. Handle all aspects of forest management. Everything from reforestation, acquisition, disposition, timber sales, anything that goes on in the forest, we help with.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Ray, for joining us, and Mark, of course. So let's kind of hop into what we're talking about today, gentlemen. We're wanting to discuss evaluating land before you buy it, which seems kind of a big topic or a big idea, a little bit more so than just talking about recreational land, because we're encompassing land for any kind of use that you want it. But before we actually talk about the evaluation process, let's talk about what are some things that a person looking into buying a larger piece of property or a larger piece of land, what are some of the things that they need to kind of consider before starting this process?
There's a number of things, but usually someone reaches out to us when they're ready to start buying property and they have a few of the details worked out. They may know where they want to own the land, what area, and maybe what their budget is, but then from there, there's things they need to consider, like does it have legal access? Does it have access to utilities? Are they wanting a recreational cabin or something to get away, or is it just strictly an investment? And then on top of that, what are they looking for it to generate income over a certain amount of time, or if it's just strictly for enjoyment? But the primary thing I think they should evaluate is a budget and know what their parameters are to rule out properties and have a better chance of finding something efficiently and quickly.
So when people give you guys a call, just in your experiences, do they already have a property in mind, or is this, hey, I know I want to get a larger piece of property, I'm at square one, let's hop into this? What's been y'all's experience with some of these callers?
It's been both. A lot of times the initial contact is because they see a property available, and then through the conversations determine that maybe that property is not the right one, but we identify more specifically what they're looking for. So it can be either way. It's helpful when they reach out prior to asking about a specific property and just tell us, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and then we can look through our inventory or share it with other people in the business and see if we can help them find something.
And so you guys want to make sure they at least kind of have a budget in mind, and maybe even a piece of property that they're looking at. But what are some of the other things, I guess, that you guys help them kind of flesh out once they give you guys a call saying, hey, I want to start doing this?
In a lot of instances, we have people reach out that have not really even spoken to a lender. So we have a list of lenders that we share quite frequently with new buyers. There are a lot of buyers that are new that is really a lot of learning curves for the forest industry, that they're getting into forest land ownership, and they may not be have a full understanding of how location plays into that within the meal proximities, timber values, and even the differences in products between hardwood and pine. So it's really a learning curve to teach some of these new buyers and help them to understand the many different aspects of what they're looking at.
So you guys get a lot of relatively green folks when they want to kind of start this process. Is that what I'm understanding?
I would say, especially since 2020, there's been a lot of new buyers coming into the market space.
And why do you guys think that is? Why are we seeing a increase in the last 5-6 years now?
I feel like there's just been a significant amount of capital and available funds that want a place to get away and just want to put it in a hard asset, their investment. And just piggybacking off what Ray was just talking about with educating new interested landowners in how timber works. You really have to simplify it. You have to go kind of big picture, and then as the properties narrow down the properties in a specific property, that's when they get into more details, because each property is unique. Each property has to be evaluated on its own merit.
And so really you kind of want to have someone who knows not only what their budget is and if they have a certain property in mind or not, but how they plan on using that property, whether for timber or recreation or maybe a mixture of both, correct?
Correct. And we get a lot of landowners or potential landowners that come to us and may think that they're, heavily recreational minded, but as they learn about proper management and care of forest, they tend to become mixed use minded. So they are willing to manage that forest, realize that it does produce some income over time, and they can also enjoy the benefits of the recreation.
Okay. And so this might seem like a dumb question, and forgive me if it is, but how important is it for you guys from a kind of real estate perspective for a potential buyer, potential landowner to have kind of their ducks in a row, if you will, having that initial information ready to go so they can properly communicate with you guys? How important is that first step?
I would say it's very important, but it more than important, because we have foresters on staff and real estate professionals, and so we can help with some of that learning. What it does, though, when they come with that knowledge, it, like Mark mentioned earlier, it does expedite the process. What I would recommend to anyone looking is that they do, especially if it's a forest land property, that they do have someone with forest knowledge that they consult. A registered forester within the state, and particularly an ACF if they want help with management, in my opinion. So.
And now, is there a certain, this is just probably my ignorance in buying property, but is there a certain type of real estate agent that is more geared towards larger properties, or is it just kind of general, like just grabbing a real estate agent and going out there?
Land agents definitely have a different skill set and different experience needed over residential or commercial real estate agents, which land agents fall under commercial more typically, but you need to be able to get out on the land. You need to understand surveys, need to understand legal descriptions, easements, and a number of other things related to just the land. If it's a farm or if it's timberland, what are the components that make up the unique properties of each one of those properties, and how can you demonstrate and communicate that to a potential buyer? And you're also helping your seller. You need to be able to do that in a professional manner and help them even get their property ready to bring to market. What are the details that we need to highlight and share with the public?
Tell you what, gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break right here and hear a little bit more from you guys, DDK Forestry and Real Estate.
DDK proudly supports the AFA. In 1962, Mr. Jerry Davis started DDK with a core value of wanting to help forest landowners. With the professional services DDK provides, they allow landowners to have complete confidence in their portfolio, knowing that their property is managed at the highest level from an expert team with years of experience. Give DDK Forestry and Real Estate a call today and let them help you begin your land legacy. 501-219-8600 or visit them at forestryrealestate.com.
Thank you so much to DDK Forestry and Real Estate for their continued support of the show. So, gentlemen, we've kind of set up that what happens when a customer is interested or someone who wants to be a landowner is interested in kind of what you guys do on the front end to get them ready. So let's talk about the evaluation process in general. What are we doing to evaluate a piece of property, especially a larger piece of property? It's more than just a house on a half an acre or something. What are we talking about when we're saying or to evaluate this property to make sure that it meets the needs of the buyer?
So in a perfect situation, the property that the new buyer's identified or something they're looking at, if it's been brought to market by a professional land broker, you're typically going to have stand maps. The property will be mapped, broken out by stand characteristics. You may have data. So on a timber property, you would have stand information, age, what species that stand is, the age of those trees. If they're merchantable, you'd have a timber inventory, so you have volumes so that you can put value to that product. In those cases, that data is readily available, pretty easy to analyze. There are cases where buyers have property or properties identified that may not have that information already compiled, and so then we have to compile that for them. There's multiple mapping programs out there that you can use, and we use several that will help you identify the stand characteristics, the stand types. When it comes to an inventory, you're typically talking about a professional forester that's on site, boots on the ground. It's a statistical analysis, so you're putting in plots across the stand or the property. You're measuring trees and using that statistical analysis to then figure volumes. And that's volumes by species and by product. So you'll have multiple products within a loblolly pine tree, pine pulpwood, pine chipping saw timber, poles. So utilizing a forester to do that is very important.
And then I would add too that on a property, depending on what the buyer's actually wanting the property for, even it could be a large timberland tract, but they want to make sure they can put a structure on it. And so we spend a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, who's the water municipality in that area. Is there a water line nearby? You have to make phone calls and wait on a return call. And then also with the electricity, what's the power? Where's the power lines? Can you get power to the site? There's a lot of that goes on for buyers that are looking for places to actually build something that's not just a common use of our. You wouldn't expect us to be doing that a lot, but it's very common that we have to do that legwork for a buyer just because they don't have that experience.
And so how often, I guess on an average, what's the timeline that we're looking at for you guys to have to go in, do that kind of work? What is an average timeline from identifying that we need to do that work to the work being completed and we're ready to kind of make the sale go through?
It really varies, but it can take a considerable amount of time. Fortunately, on the properties that we're bringing to market, we're doing that legwork a lot of times on the front end, especially the stand mapping, the inventory work, so that buyers have readily available information to make informed decisions faster. Where we're helping a buyer and that information is not available, it can take some time. So, and it's a function of how big the property is and how much inventory needs to take place, and what kind of inventory is being conducted. I would say on average, one forester can inventory maybe 60 acres a day. So, you can do the math. If it's a 60-acre property, we can get the inventory in a day, half a day to run it up and get the volumes. But if it's a 600-acre property, then it's significantly more time.
And I guess it is tough to put a time frame on someone from the water municipality or power company to give you a call back, because that can vary from a couple minutes to a couple weeks.
This last example, it took a week just to get the information back to the buyer, so they determined if they were going to make an offer. And then once they got that, it was very quick. They made an offer pretty much immediately once they had the information that they were waiting on. But it can take time. But if it's a small property and we've got most of the information already gathered, we can get a buyer the information they need in a day, 2 days, within a week typically, unless it is a job of going out and doing a complete inventory or something.
And I want to highlight this just so people don't get into it thinking, oh, I'm ready to buy, we'll get it done here in a couple of days. Like, no, that it's a process, especially if you do have a larger piece of property. That's 60 acres per day, that can add up, especially once you get into those bigger pieces of land. That's
correct. And there are ways to, it's not uncommon, especially on larger pieces of property, to have offers with due diligence periods so that you have an agreed upon sale price, but you have a period of time, be it 45 days or 60 days, to collect your data, your field data, and verify that information.
Okay. So how has the process, well, let me back up here because I just remembered something that we had talked about before we started recording. Mark, you were kind of talking about this, that there are different evaluation models, is that the correct terminology, that also need to be looked at depending on what you want for your property. Can you just kind of talk to that for a second? Yeah,
there's some new markets that are becoming viable for individual landowners now. You've always had the timber markets or farm or recreational leases for hunting or other ways to generate revenue from your investment. But then now there's also the carbon market has really taken off, and so if you're a rec buyer and you may have some timber that you're not going to do a lot of activity in, or it's a lot of hardwoods or something, there may be some programs either with the private carbon markets or even government programs that you can look into that might generate some additional funding that the just an individual may not be aware of. So that's another reason we can bring some extra value or bring some ideas that someone might use in their evaluation of the potential property.
Okay. And that kind of falls in line with having a real estate agent that is in line, not just the residential, but the commercial or the land real estate, I think is the terminology there. So,
And to further on that, Seth, I would say there's also a tremendous amount of, whether they're through the USDA or through state agencies like the Arkansas Game and Fish, there are several cost share incentive programs to help private landowners with management, whether that be reforestation, thinnings, prescribed fire, injection work. So there's a lot of landowners that don't realize those programs are out there, and we are able to help a lot of new buyers take advantage of that, and that can sway their opinion about what they're looking for in a lot of cases too.
We actually do have an episode on cost share programs from about a year or so ago. Go look back in some of our older episodes, but if you're interested in cost share programs, we do have an episode kind of talking about that as well. So gentlemen, as we kind of get towards the end of our conversation, one thing I do want to talk about, I'd be a little remiss if I didn't, is how the evaluation process has changed, especially with like the influx of new technology. How has that process changed for someone in y'all's position?
Well, I'll go first here. I know Ray's got some additional things I won't cover, but I remember when I got in this business 21 years ago, it was you had to go into ArcGIS and actually draw a map and have the aerial layer loaded on your computer, and it took time, and it was not very easy to transfer that to the field. Now with all the different mapping systems we have, if you got acres, we use Land ID, Data Scout Pro to provide parcel data. We've got a lot more technology that we can use in our office to evaluate a piece of property before we even think about jumping in the truck and going to the site, because it's all just readily available, and then it's easily accessible on our phone now instead of the laptop and the GPS unit and a whole big machine that you used to have to take out to the woods. So technology has definitely helped improve the ability to get out and show property and show a potential landowner where they are on the property on your pad or whatever device you're using. You can actually show them, hey, here's where we are, here are the boundaries. It makes it a lot easier.
I wholeheartedly agree. The mapping technology is just tremendous these days, and the variety of software that's out there for that. When it comes to the inventory and the field work, it's very similar. Used to, we went out with a notepad or a tally book, and we hand tallied, and we brought it back and typed it in to a spreadsheet or to a volume software. Now all that is electronic. You tally in the field with a handheld device. It uploads through Wi-Fi. You can even do it hotspotting off your phone in the field, but it uploads immediately. A person in the office can run that inventory in real time and get that data immediately. So it's cruising has technology has increased the speeds at which we can do stuff, and then there's a lot of new technology even with LiDAR, some things like that, backpack units that as a person walks through the forest, it's calculating that data and then sending it to the software programs to run the volumes. But I as always, I think as time goes on that we'll see more and more changes and more efficiencies as well.
So really, it's just kind of helps speed up that whole process. is really kind of what I'm getting at with, or I guess what I'm understanding from what all of this.
Yeah, and your drone technology too has come a long way, and being able to provide aerial imagery that buyers can see the property from a bird's eye view is becoming more and more common. I mean, early in the technology, you would do it on just certain properties we were bringing to market, but now it seems pretty much most of the properties that come out have aerial drone footage, and then there's also using that same technology to manage spraying and other forestry jobs are being done with drones now too.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, one of the last things I want to ask you guys before I let you go is, do you have any tips for anyone listening to this, anyone curious about getting into being a larger landowner? Do y'all have any tips from your professional standpoint to help them, I guess, during their process?
I would say knowledge of the markets. If it's a timberland property, it's timber markets. If it's a farm or ag, it's the ag markets. But knowledge of those markets, and then I would say jump in. I mean, even if it's a small property, it's, the old sayings, they're not making any more land, and land doesn't tend to go down in value very frequently. So I would say look at your budget, see what you can afford, and jump in, but use a professional, land professional, forester. Get in contact with a professional that can give you professional guidance and help you through the process.
And I would add that if land is a great investment, and I think you should look at it. You're not spending money. You're just reallocating those funds. The land's not going anywhere. And as long as I've been doing this, the price of land has just been increasing. And I don't foresee that changing. So I think, like Ray said, jump in, get a piece of property, but make sure you know what you're buying. Get out on the property, get boots on the ground, understand the asset that you're going to invest in, understand the location, what community is it in, neighbors. All that's very important. But definitely you need someone. If it's something you haven't done before, you need some guidance. So find a good, trustworthy professional to help you. And if a buyer's looking for additional professional resources, a good source would be the Realtors Land Institute. They have a website where you can go out, and each state, they have a list of accredited land consultants, and those guys have professional experience and have proven that inside the organization. And if you want to find additional resources for professional foresters, you can visit the Association of Consulting Foresters website. There's a list by they'll have the foresters in the state that have met that requirement. It's a professional designation that they've had to achieve, and should be very qualified to help you with any of the forestry questions you might have.
And that's something we always kind of preach or harp on, how whatever you want to call it on this show is, if you have questions, pick up a phone and call somebody. Call someone like a DDK if you're interested in something like this. There are people out there willing to help, willing to answer questions. That's what we're here for. They're not going to, turn you away or scream and yell at you. So pick up a phone, give someone a call. Well, guys, is there anything else y'all want to add or y'all want to say before we wrap it up? That was kind of everything I had today, and I think we kind of tackled everything. But is there something I missed that y'all want to add?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for what you do, and the Arkansas Forestry Association, all you guys do to help us and the industry.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for taking time out of your day to join me. I know we're pretty early in the year, and I've been working with Riley, y'all's communications lady, and so she was very helpful to get us connected and get all this squared away. So thank you guys.
Yeah, she wanted to make sure that we made sure that people would like us and follow us and all that. So Ray and I are not as up on that. So if you'll help her with that to make sure that people know we were here and talking. So
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. We want to thank you for joining us again this month. As always, we want to give a special shout out and thank you to Rob McCormick / some guy named Rob for the use of our theme song, The Same Love. That's off of his album, The Folkster. We, of course, have a link to his website in the description of this episode where you can find show information, music information. You can find more of his music on Spotify as well. Thank you to DDK Forestry and Real Estate for their sponsorship of this month's episode. So make sure you come back next month when we'll have a new topic, a new discussion, and a new Voice of Forestry.